Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I think there seems to be a problem for our chair to join the session, which is a bit awkward, but we will get started while we're trying to sort that out. Yeah, just as an introduction, I'd just like to remind all our attendees the overall theme for this conference is connecting dots and enabling research in India. And there are so many departments at an organization that need to come together to ensure the appropriate utilization of funds and for the project to move forward. So this is what we are focusing on for the session right now, which is working with the institutional administration. And we have here with us three panelists. We have Mr. Thirumani from CMC Vellore. We have Tripti Parekh from Ahmedabad University, and we have Vasundhara Lad from ISER Pune. And I do hope our chair will be able to join us very soon. So I'm going to start this session by actually requesting our panelists to introduce themselves. Thiru, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at CMC Vellore? Over to you. Thiru, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, Thiru, you're audible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is Thirumani from Christian Medical College Fellow. I am a research coordinator and the grant administrator in the Wellcome Trust Research Laboratory, a division of GI Sciences. I'm working here for the last 26 years. So I handle some of the Gates Foundation, NIH, Wellcome Trust grants and few DBT and ICMR. So I can share you whatever I know.
That's very nice. It was so good to have you here with us. Thank you so much. And next, I request Tripti to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
this is Tripti Parekh. Hi. Thanks for inviting me here. I handle grant for finance in the Ahmedabad University, and this is my fourth year. And so, for a little bit of experience, I can share whatever I can.
Thank you, Tripti. And next, Vasundhara from ISER Pune. Vasundhara has been here at the last IRMI conference. Welcome back, Vasundhara. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Savita, for inviting me. It's always interesting to be a part of IRMI team. So I am Vasundhara Lad, Chartered Accountant by profession, and as a Joint Registrar Finance and Accounts with ISER Pune. I've been here since last 2016. I've also worked with IIT Indore and IIM Indore. So basically handling the finances, but yeah, the grants team and the finance team of ISER Pune, we work together and try to see that the projects run smoothly.
Thank you, Vasundhara. And we have Pradeep here with us. So Mr. Pradeep Pai is the chair of today's session. It's a pleasure to have Pradeep here. Pradeep is an administrator with over 30 years of experience. You worked at various kinds of organizations, including NCBS for more than a decade. You've been the registrar at IIT Kharagpur, and more recently, the joint registrar at Narsing Monji Institute of Management Studies. Now, Pradeep is the chief administrative officer at IIM Shillong. So I think some common connections with Vasundhara there over the IIM institutions. Pradeep, over to you. So our panelists have just introduced themselves. Over to you to run the session.
Thank you, Savita, and good afternoon to all. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this initiative of IRMI, and this is the most, apt topic of the current, situation that we are going through. So, Savita has said many things about me, but, the thing is, just I'm one amongst you, and the thing is, only by the numerical numbers, I have been, in this profession for a reasonable period of time, and that's it, and nothing more than that. And let this be the forum where we, learn a lot from each other, and definitely, since you people are in the middle of things, you'll be in a better position to explain how things are. And without delaying any further, let's straight away go to the session. And then, as we go through the session, let this be an interactive session. We can all, participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. I would like to thank DBT Welcome Trust India Alliance and Custard Medical College Fellow for having given me an opportunity to speak on the finance functions of grants administrators. But it is a tough task to deliver a detailed picture in 5 minutes. So I will try to highlight key elements in the next 5 minutes. The responsibility of the grants administrator is generally to support the PI in the development of the grant application, complying with requirements of the funding agency, brief the PI on the award terms and reporting requirements, monitor the account through the term of the award, including costed and no cost extensions, approve all the requisitions for expenditures under the project account, prepare periodic account status reports to accompany the scientific reports, work with the PI to obtain proper authorization for rebudgeting or transfer of funds across budget line items. Principal investigators should be aware that they are responsible not only for meeting the technical requirements of the grants, but also for managing their budgets. Therefore, they should always ensure that the expenditures have been properly approved, expenditures are consistent with the proposed budget, and the expenditures are consistent with the funding agency guidelines as well as their own institutional policies. Grant administrators plays a significant role, especially for hiring personnel, underspend and overspend budgets, and during the no-cost extensions. When hiring personnel, the PI and the institutional HR have to be very careful on recruitment and offers to the employees. Failing to attend to detailed may lead to classification as disallowable expenses. For example, as per Indian Government Research Funding Agency's project, research fellows must have a GATE or NET qualification in addition to the candidate's post-graduation qualification. Failing to recruit a staff with a GATE or NET may lead to disallowing this expenditure or cut down to 50%. Therefore, the PI should always consider whether the position should be a research fellow position or an alternate that does not require GATE or NET. With regard to the underspent budgets, there will be only 2 reasons for this kind of situation. Either the costing of the project was wrong or the charges have not been properly billed. The PI must notify the responsible grant accountant of any outstanding financial charges so that the grant can be billed before the settlement of accounts is submitted to the agency. For overspent budgets, this will not happen if you vigilantly watch the monthly finance ledger. But sometimes there are factors which makes the budget overspent for which you have no control. I would like to describe an incident I dealt a decade ago. In 2012, we had a DBT project in which DBT sanctioned 4.75 lakhs for a nanodrop spectrophotometer. We obtained a quotation from Thermo Fisher and the estimate was $10,700. And during that time, the dollar exchange rate was 44.35, which is well within the budget. But when the letter of credit was opened, the US dollar started fluctuating to 49.5. And finally, when the bank debit was made, it was 52.28. So we were charged 5.75 lakhs against the originally sanctioned budget of 4.75 lakhs. So we have contacted our program officer with a letter and all the supporting documents explaining the exchange rate fluctuation. This was reviewed and accepted by DBT, who subsequently released the additional amount. But the decision is purely dependent on your program officer and the project advisory committee. So you should be very careful in those things. Thanks a lot for your attention and happy to answer your queries.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I am Trupti Parekh, a chartered accountant, and I look after grant funds in Ahmedabad University. Today, I am going to share a small case study which covers how we rearrange our funds in budgeted category among recurring funds budget head, so as to monitor expenditure as per budget head sanctioned by the granting authority. Project was based on climate mitigation and sustainable development in urban sector. It was international multi-stakeholder partnership and research network. Our project component was supported by DBT. It was having sanction date 14th October 2019 for 2 years. And the manpower sanction budget was around 68% of total cost to pay the 4 highly qualified RAs. It was field-based non-lab project when 4 highly qualified RAs were appointed. Qualifications were like MPhil, MPL, MBA level. They were sustained by this project. Now, field trip and travel was the crucial part of the project. However, due to COVID pandemic, project stood still in March 2020. So project was sanctioned in December 2019. Then on all the RAs on board and the momentum was started in January 2020. Then comes March 20 when our really difficult situation starts. Here we face difficulty like all other categories were underutilized while manpower category was having deficit in budget. To remain compliant with DBT orders, we suggested PI to request for reapportionment, that is interchange of available funds from other categories to manpower categories. So other categories which were not utilized or negligibly utilized, those funds can be diverted to manpower category and the manpower can continue to work under this project. And so as to carry out project smoothly and achieve end result of this project as desired. So the action taken was a request for reapportionment of funds so released under different categories was made to the authority. So from July 21, we started this exercise for requesting and writing to the agencies. While we remain compliant in all 4 things like this, the submission of the financial year-wise audited SEUCs and provisional SEUCs, whenever they ask, we submit all the papers on time. Then the RA remunerations, due drawn statement submitted, then the all 3 years saving bank interest refunded via Bharat Post, PFMS UC uploaded as per PFMS norms. So as to do our project efficiently. Awesome. This is the timeline for project related submission. So as you know, in the March 20 after pandemic, the real difficulty situation started. Then January 20 when we got the second tranche, but the late and inadequate. From January 21, July 21 to September 21, we started writing for request and reapportion with the extension of this pretension, but no funds. After email exchanges and whatever the documents have been asked, submission of all the documents, in December 21, finally we got approved reapportionment of budget with the third tranche release for manpower, and hence the manpower category fully received. And in May 22, we further got the extension, no cost extension, for 6 months, so as to complete all the project related activity in all as per desired by the PI and RS. So end result of this exercise was we got the permission, written permission in a third tranche letter that the permitted to reapportion so and so amount in manpower head. 100% funds utilized for manpower category as per the budget of the project, and we got also 100% in manpower categories. So no cost extension received for 1 year, and PIs and RAs held and concluded workshop in December 22 with the August participant. In September 22, RAs concluded workshop in September 22 with the participants from the different areas. So PFMS UC status, we got UC approved by PO. This was a by an RA, and they carried out their workshop, concluded the project as per the desire. The behind was to get the peace of mind for the project and researchers, so as to concentrate and focus only on their project and research studies, and not to worry about the funds. So this is the idea. Thank you. This is from my side. This is Trupti Parekh.
A very good morning to one and all. I am Gangadharan Harikumar, working as Head Stores and Purchase Department at the National Center for Cell Science, NCCS, Pune. NCCS is an autonomous R&D institution under Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. I am thankful to the organizing committee of IRMI for providing this wonderful opportunity for me to share my experiences and success as a head in the materials department. Ladies and gentlemen, I have completed 30 years of service at NCCS. During this long journey of my service at NCCS, today, I am confident to tell you people that we could establish a wonderful procurement cell at NCCS, which is working very efficiently to cater the services to the users. When we talk about the procurement of goods and services in any institution, there are three major components, like legal and financial framework, institution, and stakeholders. The purchaser materials managers should have thorough knowledge on financial and legal matters related to procurement activities. Rapid changes are happening in this field, modifications in the existing rules, introduction of new rules and regulations, policy changes at different levels. So to function within the framework of legal and financial rules, knowledge and interpretation of rules is very important. A good purchase manager should understand the needs or requirement of the institution where he or she is working. Facilitate the users by providing the material or services required by them in time, so that target of the institution could be achieved. A purchase manager alone cannot accomplish this job. Here, a strong and efficient workforce is required. Thus, at NCCS, I have given special attention while recruiting or posting passionate individuals to work in the stores and purchase department. Fair allocation of work is always done to each staff member. according to his or her ability and capability. The next parameter in the success made is handling attention deficit. Attention deficit is a major concern nowadays, and it considerably affects the contribution of the individuals. So, I have kept time for interaction with each individual, try to understand their problems and difficulties, and help them to overcome as much as possible. It increases their confidence level, remove fear and tensions from mind, which will eventually make differences in their contribution to the department. Another point is the stakeholders. It is also a very important factor in the field of materials management. Building up of confidence between the buyer and seller is definitely required. Make them understand about your requirements and educate them wherever it is required. So, it will help to establish a healthy buyer-seller relationship to benefit the organization. One has to arrange vendors meet at your organization, which will help to understand the difficulties or problems they are facing while dealing with your requirements or in organization. It could help us to find a way to resolve all those issues. Every purchase managers are expected to work within the ambit of rules and regulations in their procurement activities. NCCS is completely aligned with the rules and procedures mentioned in the GFR 2017. We strictly follow the budgeting, tendering process, finalization of the vendor, release of purchase orders and work orders, remittance of payments, imposition of penalty clauses wherever required, safeguard measures to be incorporated as per GFR terms, material replenishment process, and even disposal of goods is also an important factor in the materials management. A constant watch on the changes in rules, policies are very important as we are dealing with the public procurement system. Redefining in the procurement system has been introduced from time to time by the government. Improvisation in any sector is a continuous process that we notice in all spheres of life, right? Likewise, changes or redefining activities are being brought into the procurement system. Introduction of GEM, implementation of evil system, various amendments in the GFR rules, especially let us talk about the enhancement of purchase saving made through certificate A and B, which has immensely helped the users. Then Make in India policy, support to MSME and startups, relaxation in GT approval procedures, compulsion of e-procurement, etc., are some of the redefining process being introduced to bring transparency in the system and the effective utilization of money which is being spent for the procurement. Having said all these positive advantages in the system, we, the purchase managers, also face certain constraints like difficulties in getting the technically suitable material through GEM. Inflated pricing are also being noted in the portal. Limited items are only uploaded by the vendors in the portal. Timely installation of equipment or machineries and after-sales service support is also becoming a constraint through the purchase managers project. Next is the delay of releasing funds by the funding agencies, which affects the purchase system in utilization of purchase budgets in time, submission of various important documents such as UCSC, etc. to the funding agencies. It also leads to lapse of funds sometimes. We also observe delay in custom clearance of imported shipments due to digital clearing system being introduced at the customs house by governments. This terribly affects sometimes for temperature sensitive shipment clearance and livestock extraction. Next, hike in the GST or IGST has reduced the purchasing power of any organization because a huge amount of money is being spent towards that purpose. And the last and foremost important point is the reduction in manpower. If you don't have sufficient manpower in the system, in the unit, in the purchase department, it is very difficult to fulfill the aspirations of the users. It also affects the purchase managers functioning and becomes a constraint. However, we have to live with the system and try to do the best finally. I strongly believe that without a challenge, there cannot be a success. I once again thank you to IRMI and the participants of this great program for giving me an opportunity to present this slide, my experience and success, hurdles, etc. Thank you so much.
Savita, any more presentations?
No, Pradeep, these are the presentations. But now you can open up the floor to discussions with our panel.
Okay. Thank you so much. No, it was interesting to go through the presentations of each of my colleagues. So broadly, I was just noting down issues. If you classify, it comes into one is the budget and its appropriation and reappropriation. Second comes with regard to the personnel. It is appointments, recruitment, so on and so forth. Then relating to the budget, certain pertinent questions have been, posed by our colleagues. One is the exchange rate fluctuation and its impact on the budget and the impact of tax, whether it's a GST or service tax or in whatever format one calls it. So having seen this, I would like to, just open up the discussion. First, let's start with the, budget. That is the initiating point when we prepare the detailed project report or the project report as it may be called, depending on the financial implication, the stages of approval it has to go through. And then comes, what I think Trupti was mentioning about the reappropriation. So I think not all of us are familiar with the process of allocation, then comes the appropriation, and then subsequently reappropriation, and what are the do's and don'ts. So Tripti, if you can, take it through, if you can join by saying, what were your experiences when you were facing the question of appropriation and reappropriation in the budget?
Yes, I would like to share this. Firstly, there were funds, recurring funds. There was sufficient for in other categories. So we don't had the difficulty for the deficit in the grants itself. Grant has the funds, but what happened? As you know, manpower was meter was running and running. So we to remain compliant, we suggested, and this idea took the time to get on paper, but PI was very supportive, and PI had liked this idea for getting the reallocation of funds. So in first time to the agency, we just requested for extension and to allow us the funds which are available in other categories to utilize for the manpower. So the RAs which were sustained by the project can remain in the project and continue the desired work. So this was the idea. But yes, the email exchanges and requesting to agencies take time. And of course, as and when required, because this is the spending in the category of manpower, they repeatedly ask us for the where have you spent and to whom you have given. And this all the RS degree certificate also was asked, and the qualification certificate plus the payroll and all the supporting documents as and when agency asked, step by step we followed and submitted. So the main idea is request to agency and comply with the agency's requirement. So you might get success.
Okay. So thank you, Tripti. Now, just let me add, it may not be, known to everybody. There are certain aspects. From the budgeting point of view, what happens is that, when the budget is approved or the project is approved, you will find broadly there are two components. One is a recurring component and another is a non-recurring component. Now, in the recurring, environment of funds, that is moving funds from the recurring to non-recurring or the other way, is strictly a no-no. Now, again, in the non-recurring component, one has to be very clear, because I'm telling this, you may be knowing it, but for the other participants and especially the PIs and the prospective PIs who are participating, for their information, that again, environment of funds or movement of funds between the various heads of non-recurring, recurring, again is also strictly a big no, unless there are compelling reasons. Now, and that too for the manpower component. Now, suppose if you may have money for consumables, but you do not have money for salary or fellowship, you may not be allowed to do that. So the best way to deal with it is that, there should be sufficient cushioning done at the budgeting stage itself, where, you are not hamstrung by this kind of, problems that is posed. Secondly, is that, especially for the long duration project. By long duration project, I mean the projects which are more than 3 years and above. So often there are projects which are 3 years and above. There is always a component one has to factor, that if you hire a net qualified candidate, who is eligible for fellowship and you're paying the fellowship, that should be factored that after 2 years, after meeting the requirement, the fellowship is subject to revision. So this is an important point that has to be factored, that if you are hiring a net qualified candidate, this revision at the end of the stipulated period should be properly factored upon. So this is one aspect, which I thought of sharing, because I had practically faced this issue, while, dealing with DBT, DST and CSIR projects. And the best thing is that always, leave a string, as they say, which can be latched upon in terms of this problems that we arise. When we say fellowship, we'll say as per the, UGC or DBT, DST guidelines as applicable from time to time, and will be revised as and when. So, the thing is, you have the option to go back to the funding agency to say that you can revise, right? So again, related to this budget, I'll come back, because I think my colleague from the first first presentation regarding the exchange rate. Now, we know for sure that majority of our equipments that we procure are imported. Often we make the mistake, when we get the budgetary quote, we immediately get it in Indian rupees. Now the exchange rate fluctuates. So what do you do? Right? What do you do? My suggestion would be that this has worked, that please put the dollar equivalent, dollar or the pound sterling or the euro as there and say this is an indicative rate. And if there is exchange fluctuation, so we would come back. And let me tell you, as per the Ministry of Finance guidelines there is a provision that if there are exchange fluctuations at the time of the sanction of the project to the execution of the project, when a particular item is ordered, so that can be taken care of. So this is another aspect I thought of sharing. I think another colleague of mine, I forgot his name, pardon me, when was mentioning about the appointments. So who was, just if you can please join so that I can,
Pradeep, we are unfortunately, Pradeep, unfortunately,
Yeah.
Mr. Hari Kumar is not able to join us.
Okay.
So, but we have the other panelists, so it'd be good to get their views as well.
Okay. I think Vasundhara would be the right person regarding this appointments, because she has been in ISA for a reasonable amount of time. So, for this long-term projects, Vasundhara, you have the research associates or the research assistants or the research scholars. Then you have specialized staff recruited, and sometimes for the long duration projects, you have faculty recruited.
Right.
Right. So, what are the problems that you have encountered? Now, why I'm telling you this is this problem will be vis-a-vis the institution.
See, the basic problem what we face is that, yes, for recruitment, you have to follow the institute guidelines. So normally we make the institute guidelines little bit flexible, like not like the regular appointments. So that is one aspect of it. The main problem that we face in a project or a grant is like you don't receive the second year money, for example, on time. Okay, so then how do you pay to the people? That is a major problem which is normally faced by the institutes. So earlier, like what we used to do is that we used to fund it from the institute account. But now that is also not possible because the main institute account is on the TSA. So TSA means it's an account opened with the RBI. So like you can't, give an advance to the projects and then you can take it, recoup it back when the project money comes. So now
Correct.
actually the main challenge that we are facing is that people are not getting money on time. And then to retain this manpower, this expertise is very, very difficult. It's very difficult. Because obviously, who will survive without a salary? So then, what solution we have come out is, what we are doing is the overheads which the projects earn, right? So out of that, what as a board policy we have formulated, that actually belongs to the institute. But what we do is that 30% we allow the PIs to take it back. So then PIs are able to fund their employees or on the project till the time the money comes from that money. So that is what we have done.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very, a nice point that you have raised. So let me add to it. So it's a kind of a bridging finance, you can say. Right. Yeah. So the thing is, we have gone through this problem before TSA was implemented with CSIR, when we had for almost 2 years no money for about 70 odd scholars not coming to us. By mistake, it was going to somebody else. So, and we were totally in the dark where it is going, and repeated, correspondence with CSIR was not being traced. Then finally, when we went to CSIR, sat with them for several days, we could find out that this has happened. Now, besides the point, the thing is, I would like to highlight here certain issues which I think all of us should be aware of regarding appointments. Now, when you, especially with regard to long-term projects. Now, long-term projects, when this appointment orders are issued or appointments are made, we should be very careful about how we word the appointment orders. It has to be very, very careful, because at no point of time it should happen that this appointment is a perpetual appointment. Now, the thing is, the law of the land has to be followed. If you are engaging somebody on a scale of pay or even on a consolidated salary, there are certain norms to be followed with regard to their social security benefits. So when the social security benefits have to be followed, so then we have to be very careful. Now, the other issue is, suppose a faculty is hired, it should not be perceived that, one can just move on from one project to the other, or for that matter, from a project position to a regular institute position. So there should be a clear line drawn up. And as administrators, at the start of the process, we should make it very clear. It can be the other way around if the funding agency allows, like you appoint a person on the institute for the duration of the project, the funding agency will bear all expenses, like earlier days Welcome Trust used to do. In that case, be very careful that all expenses means all benefits, including provident fund, gratuity, leave encashment, LTC, whatnot. Everything is costed. What is called in the common parlance as cost to company should be factored if the funding agency agrees. And this appointment, again, I would like to add here a small interjection. Nowadays, we have many faculty joining in or staff joining in who are not citizens of India. They hold a OCI card, or they may not hold a OCI card, but they may hold some other passport. Now, administratively, we should be very clear as to how to regulate their appointments. And we should be clear about that they have an appropriate visa while we offer them the appointment, and whatever it needs to facilitate, we should be doing it. And please, I would say that check the visa on which the individual is coming in, because there has been issues where people have been appointed on a tourist visa, and the funding agencies, especially the Government of India agencies, are very fussy about it, to put it in simple terms. So as administrators, as managers, we should ensure that these aspects are taken care of. Coming to research associates or research, yeah.
Pradeep, sorry, if I can just interject. I was just wondering, actually, since we have Thiru here with us, and Thiru is very experienced with managing international funding. I was wondering if we could just request Thiru to share some of his advice to our attendees today.
Yes, it will be very good to have Thiru's views.
Sure.
So just I'm winding up on this appointment. So as for the in general discussion, I would say that please check what are the terms of the funding agency and what are the institute norms, because often we have found that there has been a conflict between the two, and then ultimately it falls on the institute to sort it out. Okay, so now Thiru, are you online?
You'll have to unmute yourself.
Thiru, can you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So I hope you have heard what I have said.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so why don't you share your experience on that? Then based on that, we can.
Yeah, actually, I think you have covered most of the Indian component grants. I thought I will tell you about the Gates Foundation and the NIH one, what I have.
Right.
Actually, generally, these grant funding agencies don't give overheads. Instead, they give indirect cost or a F&A cost. It's basically facilitation and administrative cost. Whereas actually, generally the Gates Foundation do not give any money to the Indian government. For example, IGST, GST, customs duty, anything is not is it's all like unallowable expenses. You cannot charge all those to the grant. Actually, you should cover all these expenses from your indirect cost. Basically, it's slightly different from the overheads. So you have to be very careful while charging the cost to the project. So make sure only the reagents or equipment, even for the manpower. If you are recruiting people through your agency, it is fine. But sometimes people do the outsourcing through the HR agencies. So in which you will incur GST, administrative charges. So those are all like not eligible expenses. So you have to be very careful which one is eligible, which one is not eligible. And all the non-eligible expenses, basically it's all compliance. So those should be charged against the indirect cost which these agencies gives. So your ledger should have all these components, basically which is eligible expenses, which is not eligible expenses. Because actually that is some like we had a two auditing by the Mitchell Group and the KPMG. So actually they pointed out only these mistakes when they came here. They said like you cannot charge the GST or the any expenses which you pay to the government to the projects. So I thought it would be like because when you have so much expenses on this, if they disallow that, then it will be a huge expenditure incurred at the end of the project.
Okay.
If I may, I just want to add, Thiru, a follow-on question there, if I may. That with all of these complexities of what can be charged, what can't be charged, Thiru, how do you work with the faculty to ensure this kind of compliance?
No, actually, they will clearly mention all this in your notice of award or in the grant policies. Example, Gates Foundation will have their policy in the website. So which is eligible, which is not eligible, you can see it in the website. Okay. For NIH, they will give you the notice of grant award. So in the notice, they will say like which is eligible, which is not eligible. So you'll have to go through which is eligible and which is not eligible. For example, overheads. Generally, Indian agencies gives the overheads to cover the room space, electricity, water. Actually, typically speaking, these are all not eligible expenditure for all these projects, because if you know like how much electricity you are incurring for your project room, it is a direct expenses for these projects. So you can charge directly to the project for all these expenditure. It's called estate cost actually.
Okay. Now let me add Thiru here. What you have raised is a pertinent point. Now at the time of the budgeting.
Yes.
I'll give you a clear example. Say I have a lab which is say 2,500 square feet of area.
Okay.
If I say that I have a dedicated water supply and electric supply meter, which I can measure. So for the duration of the project, I hope this can be charged as a direct cost.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
For the
for the duration of the project.
Yes. You can charge
because nowadays these are readily available because the way the electrical circuits or the water supply lines are designed, you can create self-accounting units where you can measure consumption, and especially when you create large facilities, right? Like if you are setting up a electron microscopy facility, which is a huge power guzzler.
Okay.
Right, where it requires, many institutes may have to do certain amount of infrastructure augmentation to install the facility, or if you want to have a sophisticated confocal microscopy facility. So where these things can be factored, I think those are allowable as a direct cost if it can be identified, right?
Yes, that's correct. Like, so for example, if you have confocal microscopy,
right,
you are running for the 30 days, but you are using confocal microscope for your like 2 days, 3 days. You'll have to charge only the proportionate amount to the project. You cannot charge the whole 30 days to the.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. The other issue is, Thiru, I just want you said about the indirect cost, like you said that the taxes are not admissible.
Yes.
But suppose say I am buying a, EM, on which there
Yeah.
is a tax component, say of 10%. So
Okay.
if I add it to the project cost, the equipment cost, it will not be allowable. Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not
Okay.
allowable.
Now if it's an indirect cost, if I say the tax on the EM, then it becomes allowable.
Yes, exactly. You can charge to your indirect cost.
I have to charge it to the indirect cost.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Actually,
it's a
usually they
question.
give. Sorry. Go ahead.
So usually, the thing is, it's a question of how you classify the cost.
Yes, yes. Basically,
Even if you go for Government of India budgeting, when you submit a proposal to the SFC or the EFC,
okay.
where you show the cost with the tax, but they always ask for the tax component to be shown separately, for the reason that the tax structure changes over a period of time. So that so suppose the tax was 10%, during the duration of the project, the tax has gone up to 15%. So you are well within your norms or well within your right to claim from the funding agency the additional 5%, provided that you have segregated the tax component.
Yeah, but actually in Gates Foundation and the NIH, they don't bother about like how much you incurred for the tax, everything. So they will give you, like, they have a policy. For example, Gates Foundation will give 15% for the NGO, like, but they give 0% for the government agencies. They give like more percentage for the US people. Like they can negotiate the indirect cost. If it is US, they will go usually up to 50, 60. They can do the negotiation. But whereas like CMC is a Christian medical, it's a private not-for-profit institution. So they have a like a ballpark figure of 15%.
Okay.
So you basically, you just need to exclude all your taxes, everything from the like whatever you purchase, and you can charge 15% of the like whatever expenses you have incurred. So you don't need to show separately the like how much you incurred for the tax, everything.
But you need the calculation. Otherwise, otherwise at the end of the day, some account has to be charged. If the funding agency doesn't foot the bill, if I have a equipment costing 100 rupees, on which I have to pay 15 rupees as tax, the landing cost for me is 115, right? So who pays that 15 rupees? Somebody has to pay.
No, actually this 15% is a tax. So your equipment cost, suppose if it is 100 rupees, equipment cost, and tax is 15, so you can charge only 100 rupees, whereas the foundation will give you 15% as indirect cost. So with that, you can cover your taxes, everything in that.
Okay. Now there's another question to it.
Yeah.
Now, how do you disclose the value of the asset in the books?
Pradeep, we also have some questions in the chat box. I was wondering if we could take those, because we are running to the end of this session, although I think the discussion is now just starting to get underway, but there are some questions. Maybe we can take some of the questions. Are you able to see the chat box?
Yes. So, just a minute.
I think all our panelists will have views on these questions.
Okay. So I start off with Bhavna from CDRI. Bhavna says lack of manpower is a major challenge. I feel in the administrative departments in India, what can be the solution? Temporary hires or project assistant? It has a yes and a no answer. See, especially when let's focus our discussion to the project. So when we have a project, it's a time-bound affair or a time-bound period through which one has to execute. So we cannot have a kind of what they call in the IT industry, people sitting on the bench who can be put to work when it is required. So it has to be the temporary hire. But while hiring temporarily project assistants or project associates, one has to ensure that we do a due diligence, and at the same time, we hire people who would be able to deliver the objectives of the project. I hope I have made myself clear.
Yeah, I had another suggestion, which is that the questions in the chat box, if any of our panelists feel like responding to that, you can also type in the chat box. That would be very helpful as well.
Then I take the next question from Pankaj Gupta. The reappropriation of funds is a time consuming and requires a lot of effort. And you are not sure whether you will get approved by the funding agency. So as I said in the beginning, you know, there are two broad components of the budget or the fund. One is the recurring and the non-recurring. And the cardinal principle is environment of funds between recurring and non-recurring is not allowed. Again, in the non-recurring, the recurring reappropriation, you have to justify. Appropriate justification is required. Yes, I agree that in the current context, it is time consuming, but at the end of the day, it does come through if the justification is appropriate and, you know, one is able to deal with it.